Hey you guys, welcome back to the Cher effect. If you clicked on this video, you are likely interested in microneedling. I feel like there's two groups of people when it comes to microneedling. The first group is someone who really wants to dive in, do their own research and their self-experimentation, and get to the point where they can safely and effectively do a microneedling at home with great results. The second category is somebody who is not going to want to be working with their skin in that way. It's scary for them. It feels overwhelming. They don't want to do the research. If you're in that second category, I would highly recommend going and getting a professional microneedling session at a well-vetted med office, derm office, and have that experience. That's what I did. Back in 2013 or so, I got a series of 3 professional microneedling sessions. I learned so much. I started to kick off my whole dive into skincare. I was into skincare long before TikTok and before it became trendy. And in those years, I have really learned, self-taught, and really dialed in my most effective at-home microneedling. So I'm 1 week out from my last microneedling session. I always love my skin after a treatment. About the third day, the first couple of days, now remember, when we're going in and causing just the slightest damage or injury to the skin with those micro needles, we are calling the skin to bring in all the healing troops, to bring in those growth factors, cytokines, those healing factors to come in and start regenerating collagen and elastin. That's why we do this. I don't take a heavy-handed approach. You will see no blood coming from my face. Ironically enough, I did have pinpoint bleeding when I had my professional sessions done. Over the years, I've learned from my own skin and my research that going deeper clinically does not offer these big bang results, that we can go at a moderate level, which for me, and of course everyone's skin is different, does not cause any pinpoint bleeding. I don't have bleeding at all. The only thing that I get is perhaps a little bit of swelling, and that's because that's how my skin tends to react to the healing process. But those tiny little micro injuries are signaling all that healing, and that's what over time creates this really strong cellular matrix that we want in our skin. Just as a reminder, I don't use injectables. I don't have filler in my face. I don't use Botox. I've had no surgeries. What I do is skincare. I do my microneedling at home. I am a huge into red light therapy, and I have been since before it was TikTokable and trendy. I have been doing red light therapy for almost 15 years. So one of the things that I have learned is I do a cycle of medical microneedling once every 6 to 8 weeks. The reason I wait 6 to 8 weeks in between is because it takes at least 30 to 45 days for a full collagen cycle to run its course. In other words, once I've done medical microneedling, I am going to need to give my skin 6 to 8 weeks to run through and get all the collagen generation that I got from that event, that I can potentially get from that event. Some people think that going in too soon after doing that controlled injury will then interrupt that collagen cycle. I also just think that that's a nice time frame. It doesn't really need to be done sooner than 6 to 8 weeks. That works. You've probably heard about cosmetic needling and medical microneedling. The difference between all of those and derma stamping and derma rolling, what we're talking about, the distinction is really in the depth that we go. Cosmetic needling is anything below a 0.25 millimeter. It's a very, very shallow depth, and some people feel that you could cosmetic needle, several times a week. Since I have such a strong protocol with medical microneedling, I don't really feel the need to do cosmetic needling. Once in a while I do, it's kind of fun. But what I really lean on is every 6 to 8 weeks, I will go in and do a new microneedling collagen infusion, collagen induction treatment. Now, the pen to me is an important feature. This is the Dr. Pen Bio Pen. Now, one thing that I do, I am not fooling around with Amazon, eBay. I go straight to an authorized dealer so that I can make sure I'm getting an authentic manufactured Dr. Pen. I really like this one. It has the inclusion of EMS. I have to be honest, I don't use a very high setting. I use the lowest setting of EMS, and that is electromagnetic stimulation, I think is what it stands for. And what that does is a little electrofusion of what we are using on the skin. Perhaps you're using a hyaluronic acid. The electrocurrent helps infuse the product into the skin, perhaps a little bit deeper. I don't know if that is what sells me on this pen. I just like it. I like the hand feel. I love the cartridges. They're really nice. This just feels like a very solid unit. I have also the Dr. Pen M8 and used it for years. It's fine. But when I upgraded to the BioPen, I do really love this. I will link, if I can, my authorized dealer, because I think it's really important to make sure that we're working with an actual authorized product and not just anything we find on Amazon or eBay. So I'm going to list the general depths that I will use on the screen. Now, really, this is a self-experimentation. By the way, I don't use any numbing or lidocaine. I personally don't like to work with that. I don't like that in my skin. I don't like the effects of a lidocaine. So since I'm not using any numbing or anything like that, I can obviously feel the treatment, and I'm going to go by how I'm feeling that day. I have never and will never go deeper than a 1 millimeter deep into the skin. In the areas that I need to really go a little bit more shallow around the eye, I will around the eye and not any closer in than the orbital bone, I'll go to a 0.5. And so we're talking half a millimeter. And then, I'll go around the mouth. Sometimes I might go a 0.75, sometimes I might go a 0.5. The neck generally is about a 0.75. It's on my cheek area that I'm actually able to do that 1 millimeter depth. I think on the forehead, it's usually about a 0.50 to a 0.75. So I really stay in that range. And I really don't feel I'm missing out on any benefits by not going deeper. And my skin does not look completely tore up when I'm done. It will be a little bit red. Now, as far as what I use whilst microneedling, and I have tried them all, the growth factors, the stem cells, the peptides, it's really impossible to say which helped the most or which, gave a bang for the buck, because microneedling is not an instant result treatment. I can say, though, that the one thing that has made the difference in my skin over time is the fact that I do it. So if you just simply want to do, which is what I did this last treatment, use a good mineral, and I mean I get a good mineral water that has some nice mineral profiles in it, because that is just sort of feeding the skin, and some simple hyaluronic acid. Something that doesn't have, fragrance in it and a lot of extra additives, a very, 1 to 2 ingredient type of thing. You know, I often will use like the Ordinary and use that as my sort of moistening of the skin and slip, if you will, even though I really don't do a lot of circular motion. I do a more of a stamping technique. So technically, I wouldn't have to use a quote unquote slip, but for me personally, I like to use something, combination of something like this while I'm microneedling. Now, a lot of research says that those channels will close up right away. Some say that maybe your skin is somewhat open for a few hours. But pretty quickly for me, I can go in with something like the Lemieux. I used this time the RX Complex. That's a really beautiful, lovely, supportive, comforting formulation that I used for, well, honestly, I use it all the time, but I really, of course, used it several times a day as I was going through my little healing journey. Now, as far as like when I schedule this, I will usually do it on a day when I am not going to be going outside the rest of that day and maybe not even having to go outdoors the following day. It's that first 24 to 48 hours where I try to stay away from putting anything heavy on my skin so I could go out with SPF and that would be okay for a quick trip or something. But I try to even avoid that. What I want to be able to do is just be hydrating my skin, putting plenty of hyaluronic acid, maybe some copper peptides or just peptides in general, something like the Matrixyl by The Ordinary, which is just giving those peptides, those elements that the skin is needing for all that healing. And I will immediately start using an LED mask. I will go ahead and keep using my panel as I do basically every day anyway, but that is just boosting and encouraging the healing process. And I love doing LED after microneedling sessions. Third day, normally I can't even tell I did anything. And that I think is because I don't go super deep, but I do feel like I have gotten all the benefits from microneedling over time. And remember, it's a long game. When it comes to tretinoin, when it comes to a good solid skincare routine, when it comes to addressing hyperpigmentation, I'm going to be addressing this sun damage, which just is the thing that bothers me most about my face is my chest. And so I'm going to go in and do a series of professional treatments. I'm going to share that with you and also how I'm supporting it at home. If you guys have any things that you've learned, special products that you use with microneedling or any questions, leave them down there. Remember, it's all about sort of finding out what your skin needs, some self-experimentation, and remember this one, the long game. It takes a long time to achieve results, but remember, what are we doing anyway, right? Time is going, so we might as well be doing those lovely treatments along the way. Slow and steady, slow and steady. I love you guys. I will meet you down there and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.